Ginny D had an excellent YouTube video that I've linked in the show notes below, where she talks about the importance of leaning in on characters' abilities. When we're able to showcase and highlight the special abilities of the characters, the players are really going to enjoy their characters that much more and really enjoy the game a lot more than if we're trying to constantly counteract the capabilities that the characters have. One particular area where we can do this is in combat. A lot of times, particularly at higher levels, usually levels 5 to 7 or above, we see particular character abilities that can completely negate entire swaths of monsters, either getting rid of great big boss monsters or getting rid of a lot of small monsters all at once. And sometimes as a dungeon master, we see those abilities and we think like, well, that didn't really provide the challenge that I was intending. So we actually try to go through ways to counteract those abilities. We give creatures magic resistance. We use legendary monsters that can automatically save on saving throws. Lots of different ways that we try to counteract these powerful abilities to make sure that the battle feels challenging. Instead, what I offer is an idea that I've been calling lightning rods. Lightning rods are monsters that we add to a combat that are specifically designed to eat these really powerful character abilities that we see sometimes. An example would be having a giant that is added to a battle whose charisma and wisdom saving throws are terrible and doesn't have any magic resistance or legendary resistance, that's specifically designed to fail the saving throw on a spell like Banish or on Hypnotic Pattern or something like that and be controlled. We want these monsters to be controlled. They've been added to the battle specifically so that they will be controlled. And that way the players have something that they can target their powerful spells at that don't completely change the tune of the battle because we knew that that was going to happen in the first place. For simplicity's sake, there's really two kinds of lightning rods that we can add to a battle. The first are great big dumb brutes. Like the giants I mentioned before are monsters that have terrible wisdom scores, terrible charisma scores. They're gonna fail saving throws against spells like Hypnotic Pattern or Banish or a number of other crowd control kind of spells. But they hit really hard and they have a lot of hit points. So players definitely want to get them off the battlefield because they're going to be very dangerous if they're not handled. The other kind of monster are great big hordes of monsters. If you have a giant pile of skeletons that's pouring in on the characters, Turn Undead is a very obvious use. And when a cleric casts that Turn Undead and is able to use it to destroy 30 skeletons all at once, they really get the joy of using an ability like that. We can do the same thing with other small minions. You might have hordes of orcs or hobgoblins who only have like 10 or 15 hit points. So if you throw a fireball on them, they're all going to go away. Even when players can see behind the curtain a little bit and realize that these monsters are there just to eat those abilities, they still feel really good when they hit with them. They know they might be getting manipulated a little bit, but the joy of watching 20 monsters explode when you drop a fireball on them is really, really exciting. When you add monsters like this, it's going to mess around with the challenge rating expectations for combat because you want these monsters to go away. And if they go away as quickly as we expect, they're not really going to add to the challenge rating, which means we probably are going to tune our challenge rating higher when we add these lightning rods in. We might not count them as no monster at all, but we probably want to keep in mind that they're going to go away quickly. Now, of course, the opposite problem is what if they don't get controlled? What if they surprisingly make their saving throws? Well, now the characters are going to have to scramble around a little bit, and maybe they're going to have to try that save or suck ability again. Or maybe they're going to have to deal with it head on, and the battle's going to be a lot harder. Sometimes that just happens. Now, one of the ways that we can really make the most of lightning rods is really projecting the fact that we're doing this. If we have a lich who is protected by a couple of fire giant zombies, we want the players to recognize that those fire giant zombies are really, really dangerous, but very easy to control as well. And that way they're not wasting spells trying to control the lich, who can't be controlled by spells because of legendary resistance and maybe a bunch of other capabilities. We want them to use those spells that they really enjoy using, but not necessarily using directly on our boss. It's important that we project which monsters are the right ones for them to control and which ones won't. And again, we can fall back to the idea that their characters probably know more about what's going on in the battle than the players do, which means it's okay to tell the characters, you don't really think you're going to be able to land a control spell on the lich, but those fire giants are looking pretty juicy. When you're running a great big horde of monsters, it works well to pack them all together so that they fit within the area of effect of a spell like Fireball or Turn Undead or something like that. And if you're looking for what kinds of monsters fit well in that horde, monsters with only like 10 to 15 hit points, so that even if they make their saving throw against a Fireball, they're still all going to burn up and die. That works really well. If you do have monsters that are slightly bigger and could actually survive if they made their saving throw, you can use my easy rule of thumb, my horde guideline, which is assume that about 1/4 of them succeed. Maybe it's 1 in 5. And that way, when a fireball hits them, you can just remove 4 out of the 5 of them, and now they only have a small group left that they have to handle. It's really satisfying from a player perspective to watch you just completely destroy or nearly destroy an entire army of monsters that's coming out at you. If we're running a boss fight, it can help us to run waves of combatants, and some of these early waves can be exactly the lightning rods that we're thinking about here. You might start off with a great horde of monsters that's attacking the characters, ones that are just prime candidates for spells like Turn Undead, Fireball, and other great big blasts that will just take them out completely or completely paralyze them with things like Hypnotic Pattern. You want the characters to use these abilities and feel like they were really effective, 2 to 4 times more effective than they'd be fighting normal monsters. Then in a second wave, you might have a couple of big brutes or maybe one big huge monster that comes out. When it hits somebody, it's going to just pound them in the ground like a tent peg. But if you hit them with a spell like Banish or Dominate Monster or something like that, you can get control over that monster and not have to deal with this powerful effect. And then it's only after those groups have been dealt with, and maybe there's still a few stragglers that they have to fight directly, that's when the actual boss comes out, and now they have to deal with the boss while they're still using all of these control spells on everybody else around. It makes for a really dynamic encounter, but one that really has an interesting and fun challenge for the players. The main takeaway from this is to lean in on powerful character abilities. Rather than trying to find monsters that can deal with spells like Hypnotic Pattern or spells like Banish or a Monk's Stunning Strike and things like that, rather than trying to circumvent those abilities, add monsters to a battle that are specifically designed to handle those abilities. Monsters that are specifically designed to eat these abilities and get stunned or get paralyzed or be charmed. You want monsters out there that are able to eat these abilities, and that makes the player feel like they really got a lot accomplished when they're actually using those spells, rather than monsters that are somehow immune to those abilities or have high saving throws versus those abilities or something else that just generally makes the player feel like, great, I tried to cast it and I failed. The number one point here is to lean in on powerful character abilities. Make them shine. Make the characters shine. Show off the cool abilities. Get excited by the cool abilities that characters have. And when you do so, your game is going to be a lot more fun for both you and the players that are running at the table. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can help me out by subscribing to the Sly Flourish newsletter, supporting me directly on Patreon, picking up any of my books, or subscribing to my YouTube videos. Thank you very much and have a great day.